This is Sybert signing into this Red Alert 3 2v2 on the map Pool Party, and spawning as the Orange Empire. In the top left we have Zuma, and teaming up with Zuma is none other than LiCtor as the purple allies, while on the right side as the Blue Empire it is none other than Joe. I'm just gonna call him Joe. And on the bottom right, it is none other than ZrethyA, once again playing as those Soviets, but this time it will be the Red Soviets. And of course, 2v2s tend to be pretty darn fun. There can be a lot of action, or there cannot be a lot of action, and it will be just kind of lame. While ZrethyA is going to be going for, of course, the classic, place your refinery or your reactor in your opponent's base, and actually replacing a refinery in your opponent's base would be a pretty mean thing to do, and that would actually work versus allies, and then they would have to try and build one in your base, and that would just be absolutely no fun. What in the world actually happened there? I think the dog barked. Somehow the Imperial Warrior killed it before the stun actually took place. However, ZrethyA going to be getting a full scout off the MCV, going to be packing up, while on the top side, Zuma has already moved their MCV to kind of that forward position. And look at that, Joe going to be just absolutely silly, setting, I think that is going to be some sort of a, like, patrol path just right there to try and crush anything that comes out of that barracks. However, it will get eliminated, and then Joe going to be following it up with a relatively fast mecha bay. That's actually fairly standard timing for that as well, but ZrethyA going to be getting up a super reactor and lots of conscripts, so nothing too fancy, although going for super reactor before war factory isn't that uncommon. It may be a little bit, but not all that big of a deal to worry about. And look at this, all four of these players have each grabbed themselves one oil derrick, is what I wanted to say, whereas not any one of these players has forgotten. And sometimes it's kind of hilarious because you'll see a player on one side of the map actually end up taking the oil derrick on the other side of the map, which can be quite humorous just because it looks weird with the way the colors are set up. However, it does look like Joe is going to be trying to kick out Zuma from his base. Zuma going to be taking over that building, trying to set up a barracks, but that will simply not work. The third base has already been established, and I'm kind of surprised that Zuma doesn't have a third base. The mecha bay going down on the front line. Joe has a third refinery up as well, and it looks like, nope, that is not going to be a third refinery. That's a civilian structure with some units garrisoned inside of it. However, the MCV will be dropping down that third refinery for ZrethyA as well, where a little bit of harassment, and actually going to be setting up a static D on top of that refinery. Joe will be able to transform to deal with this. He is going to go ahead and transform only 4 of those Tengus. Not entirely sure why he didn't transform all 5. Might have just been a little bit of a glitch, while it does look like Zuma is going for the Harvester harass. May be able to do a little bit of damage. Will be able to transform on both of those Harvesters and do some damage. However, the Tengu for Joe will get shots off on the Tengu for Zuma, so Zuma definitely going to be at a disadvantage. However, LiCtor kind of just staying to themselves. They will be flying around with an Apollo, getting themselves a full scout off, and it looks like both the Defender VX Tower and the Tengus have been pretty much eliminated. One Tengu does go down. Will he be able to transform? One Harvester will go down, and however, that Tengu did take quite a bit of damage, and now Joe may be able to just transform a couple of Tengus and take that other Tengu right out. He did take a little bit of splash damage there from that honorable discharge upgrade. Still no third base just quite yet for Zuma. Zuma still hasn't established any sort of extra eco, while on the other hand, LiCtor has moved their MCV to the kind of frontal position, going to be able to secure a 4th refinery relatively easily, and it looks like ZrethyA is still just rocking those 4 going down right there, going to be moving their MCV kind of into more of a reserve position. Cryocopters will be able to shrink down those bullfrogs, and now with tons of peacekeepers moving in, this entire force could be very easily decimated. However, it is going to be Tengus rolling in for Zuma, not actually doing anything, just taking a little bit of that damage from those bullfrogs, but no, Joe does roll in, eliminates both of the cryocopters, able to take them down relatively easily, and no, LiCtor, what are you doing? Throwing away almost 2 of those Apollos. So wasn't actually able to lose too much there, was able to do a little bit of damage, but you have to think those cryocopters certainly are expensive at $1,600 each. Those are not units you want to be throwing away. Although setting up a 4th base, and I keep thinking that's a 5th base on the way, but it is not indeed. for ZrethyA, while it is still more bullfrogs, which is of course a wise choice versus any sort of allied player. And the Apollos will get overwhelmed. The MiG will show up at the last moment and get gunned down in a couple of moments. No, it does escape just barely. The bullfrogs not actually able to do enough damage. They were being shrunk down quite readily by all of those cryocopters, while over here a single Tengu for Zuma going to be trying to harass Joe. Joe kind of sticking to themselves, trying to help out ZrethyA when and where they can. However, it does look like Zuma going to be setting up not only a third refinery, but also an Imperial docks, possibly for those Shogun battleships. Do we have any tech out? Not just yet. We don't even have finished walls. However, the hammer tank's going to be trying to focus down this ore refinery and get lots of damage, but also heal themselves up a little bit. And the Tengu harass will be happening. Joe should be able to transform on top of that Tengu without taking too much damage to ZrethyA's own harvester. And oh, look at that, the perfect transform, and actually the perfect crash landing for that Tengu as well. Going to be completely dying and just crashing into that building. A bullfrog did get eliminated there by that multi-gunner turret. However, the Tsunami just decides to activate those nano core deflectors, and instead of being able to actually do some damage, it will get caught up there and take a bunch of damage from the twin blades. It does go down there, and a little bit of cash back there for ZrethyA. Going to be throwing down that cash bounty. Support power. LiCtor has been throwing down beacons just for the fun of it. However, cryocopters will be able to freeze down that single Imperial warrior, or was it a conscript? Actually, yeah, it was a conscript from ZrethyA. While on the north side, it will be an additional refinery. Why have you not taken this refinery? I do not know. It seems like it would be a good choice to make. However, oh, a couple of Tengus may get, or a couple of Twin Blades may get taken out. No, the Apollos decide not to stick around. They don't actually want to do damage to these Twin Blades. They roll back in, and they will be taking some damage from the Twin Blades, from the Bullfrogs. However, the Twin Blades will get taken out as well. And oh, all of the Tengus show up. So many Tengus. So it's like Joe, he's playing this like a like an Empire Mirror 1v1. 3,200 additional credits do go down there for LiCtor, throwing away a fair amount of cryocopters, losing at least 4 over the course of this game, which those cryocopters not exactly cheap. They do have quite a bit of HP, but they're still not all that good of a bargain when you just throw them away for not very much actual retail. However, the first Yari mini-sub is out, revealing that Zuma does in fact actually just might want to suicide that Yari mini-sub. No, never mind, because Joe was like, hey, you know what's not cool is actually being able to kill your opponent's stuff. And then Yari mini-sub able to outsmart that cryocopter in just a few moments. Needs to suicide it if possible. Wasn't actually able to. Probably would have been able to take down that refinery if he was able to suicide that Yari mini-sub. As I said, the Yari mini-sub did, of course, reveal, hey, I do have a naval yard. However, it does look like that is going to be 4 refineries up and running for Joe. No one has taken, yeah, actually this one has been taken. However, no one has actually been taken this expansion over here. ZrethyA is still going to be holding on to that. Still no taking of that expansion either, while ZrethyA rolling in there with MiGs and a couple of Bullfrogs as well. Up here, the Bullfrogs getting chased away by those Yari mini-subs. The Twin Blades were able to take down that refinery, and it does look like an additional Tsunami tank will go down. So many Tengus, but also quite a few Chopper VXs, and almost everything will get those point defense drone upgrade, which of course always nice to have. And the Badger bombers will drop those toxins, so those Delta airstrikes will go down. IFVs from LiCtor will be able to do some damage. These air forces from ZrethyA definitely need a Crusher Crane to heal up on. Of course, placing a Crusher Crane right next to your airfield means that your MiGs will get those repairs anytime that they're getting ammo as well. It's almost as good as just having a regular airfield like the Allies. However, tons of IFVs, but also Apollos and even the Sea Wings getting in on the action. An absolute massacre, and with no transforms, Joe will lose quite a bit of stuff here. He's not going to be doing anything. He's just throwing away unit after unit. He's going to try to go for that MCV. He transforms right there, which is of course very safe because on the water you cannot be crushed, while on the bottom side, ZrethyA looks like he's going to be taking out a refinery and maybe even some more stuff of LiCtor's, but LiCtor will be trying to throw down a multi-gunner turret, will get eliminated right there, and now the refinery should go down as well. No focus firing of those Sea Wings, and even a Yari mini-sub will be able to clean up that expansion on the right side, and now suddenly LiCtor is going to be trying to come to the rescue, but with no MCV and with no way to rebuild anything. Really, all that Zuma is doing at this point is just gathering resources, but with the oil derrick, won't even be gathering quite as many as before, but with rolling on those 3 refineries, that's still all right in my book. 3 refineries is pretty good, so at this point, it's basically going to be LiCtor. As soon as Zuma leaves the game, LiCtor will have the income of Zuma in addition to their own income, so LiCtor will be in a pretty good position, but at the same time, then it becomes a 2v1. Actually, I think Zuma, the worst thing that they can do at this point is to stay in the game, because they can't actually build anything as far as I can tell. They can micro around their C-Wings, they can micro around their Yari mini-sub, they can do damage when and where they can, but no, that will be it. Zuma has been defeated. Everything does go to LiCtor, and suddenly LiCtor will be able to take out quite a bit of this army, I would think, with the additional income from... Oh, ZrethyA, what are you doing, mate? Man, just throwing those units away. Those bullfrogs will eventually go down. They're really doing nothing at this point. We'll have to see, can Joe actually make the push? He will be taking down 1 refinery. LiCtor isn't too worried about that because LiCtor has quite a few refineries to make up for it. 5 allied refineries and then an additional 2 Empire refineries up here after that. So rolling on those 7 rep, ZrethyA definitely needs to get massing out some units. The airfield is over there, not quite in range of that Crusher Crane. However, the MiGs have all been healed up. And at this point, going for a mix of some Kirovs and then just adding in some Apocalypse Tank to the ground army and then engaging LiCtor where you can, sending the Kirovs around to the south side because look at this, it's relatively unprotected. There is a Peacekeeper there, but I feel like Peacekeepers aren't actually very good versus Kirovs. It may have something to do with the fact that they can't actually shoot air. And oh, no, I thought that was going to be a naval assault as well, but nope, it is not. ZrethyA going to be escaping out onto the water. And although ZrethyA does, although LiCtor does have a couple of C-Wings over there, won't probably be able to do a whole lot with them. And is this going to be satellites or is it going to be toxin dropping from those Badger bombers? It will be a... Oh, really, ZrethyA, on top of your own V4 rocket, having to turn around and run back home. That is a special V4 rocket where it's like at that point, you don't even want to make fun of him because he ran into toxins. I mean, how bad do you feel when you run into toxins? I know every time I'm driving around and I just run into toxins, like, I don't need someone to tell me that I'm stupid. It's one of those days where you're like, yeah, I'm really stupid. I don't even know how I did that. Of course, you know, when you see a giant airplane throw down barrels of toxins, your first instinct isn't to run into them a second time. Oh, ZrethyA going to be taking a little bit of damage. Not actually a huge deal. I'm yelling about it a lot, but it's not really a big deal. However, Joe doing a good job of cleaning up all those bases. So a little bit of a round of applause to Joe, because some players are like, ah, well, that player died, which means that nothing can be there, right? And then they just leave all of that stuff. And oh, the cryo shot will be going down. LiCtor has a ridiculous army and will be able to move in here. Should be able to take down the Crusher Crane. Absolutely no problem. Needs to make sure that they're focus firing a little bit better. Needs to eliminate that repairability because that could come in to be very useful later for ZrethyA. ZrethyA may actually be getting completely pushed back here with the Tesla coil getting completely frozen. The hammer tanks as well. And now the satellites will be dropping, but LiCtor, if they just split their army right there, move their units out of the way, which they do quite perfectly. The War Factory has gone down, so might the Tier 3 as well. LiCtor may be able to actually just sweep through ZrethyA's base. I don't know that ZrethyA actually has a whole lot to deal with this. This is such a massive army with the artillery aiding in all of these units. And suddenly, Joe, what are you doing? Throwing away more units. These Tengus might actually be able to do something to these infantry. Instead, they're just going to be taking damage in the air while they can't actually do anything. And at this point, it would be better to just almost suicide them onto the Athena cannons. Although, no, they were able to survive, so they will be able to take down one Athena cannon. A second one will go down right there with help of those Wave Force artillery. Joe going to be able to barely hold off this attack. LiCtor forced to retreat and disengage. However, wow, LiCtor did a ridiculous amount of damage. Let's not lose sight of this MCV swinging around the bottom side and going to be throwing down. Oh, is that it? Yes, it is a Tesla coil. However, oh, that cannot feel good. You're like, ha, I'm going to go for a Tesla coil push. You get a Tesla coil inside of my enemy's main and then expand to their expansion or to their refineries. But then suddenly your entire MCV gets frozen by a cryocopter. about the worst feeling in the world. Now it can be shrunk down and then frozen, which is, of course, not a good situation to be in. And, oh, dual cryocopters. Joe, what are you going to do, mate? Are you just going to let this happen? It looks like no Tengus are actually going to be heading to the rescue. However, look at that. LiCtor going to be trying to bring in a couple of Sea Wings to provide extra, extra attack power for anything that tries to rescue this MCV. Alternately, they could be switched over to their Skywing mode and completely eliminate that MCV. It will most likely get sold off. No, it does get, all right, gets packed back up. I thought for a moment maybe the packing and unpacking would reset the freeze amount or the freeze animation. Oh, it was going to be for the Skywing transform to eliminate that MCV. Instant heroic status for that Skywing. ZrethyA suddenly doesn't have a whole lot going on. And actually, we have a Crusher Crane in Joe's base. ZrethyA is going to be absolutely fine as long as they can get, well, maybe, actually, a Naval Yard might be a really good choice in this situation, just because, hey, it's 1,000 credits cheaper. But, oh, the great Cryogeddon goes down, and suddenly tons of Cryocopters will be able to do massive damage to this army. Freeze down all the way Force Artillery. Don't worry about the ones that are too far away for the infantry to actually do anything. The infantry will be able to eliminate much of this army. Needs to make sure that he doesn't lose too much to the infantry of Joe. However, no, it looks like Joe doesn't even care. He was like, hey, I'm going to send one Imperial Warrior at you and then run away with the rest. And suddenly, in a fell swoop, LiCtor has been able to eliminate quite a bit of stuff from both of these players. Their armies have been totally almost decimated. I don't want to actually say decimated because that's not technically correct, but they have been almost totally eliminated is what I meant to say. Even the tank busters are not safe from the wrath of those Cryocopters, although look at that with that Naval Yard on the south side, which actually has been there the entire time pretty much. And the dancing Dreadnought, which, as we already discussed in a live stream, the dancing of these units is not, of course, a physics or a pathing problem with the Sage engine. No, it is, of course, a legitimate Easter egg, and no, that's not actually true. It was just a little bit of a joke between Couch and myself. However, actually, this Dreadnought could take a little bit of damage. At least LiCtor is going to be keeping an eye on that Dreadnought, I'm assuming. He should be able to see that a second Dreadnought is now out, and oh goodness, those Dreadnoughts, they're just so absolutely ridiculous. Oh, we're actually going for a Barracks and Bears, which is an interesting choice just because of how much infantry there is. It seems like it may be a really solid choice for ZrethyA. However, oh no, not the Dreadnoughts. The Dreadnought will get eliminated, and where is the actual Sea Wing? It's over there, just sort of chilling. Won't actually be switching over to Skywing mode just yet. Oh, right there, it does go ahead and switch on over, and might actually be able to just freeze down all of this flak with 4 and 5 actual Cryocopters there. May actually be able to just quickly eliminate everything there for this for ZrethyA. And oh, it all does get completely eliminated. Natasha is out for ZrethyA, but will it be enough to stop the overwhelming forces of LiCtor? Joe going to be trying to rush in here and do damage, but no, he doesn't actually focus fire on the Cryocopters. 7 Cryocopters could have gone down. Apollo show up at the last moment, do massive damage, but it doesn't even matter. The heroic Skywing will go down, the Sea Wing rather, and the Terror Drone has infected it, although the Naval Yard will go down. ZrethyA should be fine with that Crusher Crane as well. Going to be dropping down an additional Naval Yard with absolutely no issues rolling on. Well, I guess it's just 3 refineries now, as ZrethyA did lose that 4th refinery, but 3 refineries, considering the ability to not actually spend the majority of that money, is going to be absolutely fine for ZrethyA. Although as these ore mines dry up and they do become depleted, suddenly ZrethyA won't be all that valuable in this game. The Terror Drone will infect, a heroic Guardian, take a nice kill, but will it be able to make it back to the repair drones? I would think so. LiCtor is on top of that, and the super reactor does go down. Low power mode for ZrethyA. Suddenly ZrethyA is not in a very good position. This entire base, the eco for ZrethyA, will get eliminated. The Naval Yard is still online, but also, more importantly, that refinery is still online. The build queue is still open, and the super reactor is being rebuilt in Joe's base. Joe will not be happy about that if it ever goes explodey and gets taken out. However, the extreme range of that Athena cannon actually might be able to target down this entire base if positioned right there. And oh, will the Athena cannon actually get a chance? No, it may very well, will not, or maybe it will. However, it will be a firing, a war of the artillery is what I wanted to say. Didn't actually quite work, and now everything will get frozen down in a matter of moments. And the Athena cannon, in combination with those cryocopters, will eliminate basically everything. Natasha is really the only thing that ZrethyA has at this point. Still rocking that, still rocking the Crusher Crane. But I don't know if he actually has build radius down here to be able to, enough build radius to be able to actually place that refinery, which is a little bit unfortunate for ZrethyA. Moving out with a sizable force of just a couple of Riptides, which of course Riptides on land aren't all that great at killing buildings, but they are great at killing buildings out on the water. And look at that, all of those Tengus for Joe were able to save the day and completely save that refinery. So that Harvester is of course very happy about that. But oh, it will be the satellites going to be called down by ZrethyA. So of course going to be the master of those top secret protocols. That might actually be the tier 3 one as well. And oh, there it goes. It will take out that Peacekeeper and destined to not do much more than that, which of course is always fun to watch. However, Natasha is going to be rolling up. And oh, the cryocopters do spot her immediately. Poor Natasha, not actually able to do anything. And look at that, a Riptide even gets shrunk down just to get out there a little bit faster, which actually kind of backfired because that Riptide is now no longer actually shooting Natasha. So it's kind of pointless at this point. The Athena cannon will be able to clean up the rest of this base, maybe. No, not actually. I think it did get rallied back there. And oh, the cryo shot, will it be good enough? Trying to split the units. Splitting the units worked pretty darn well. However, now none of them are firing. Joe is going to be losing a ton of units unless he can actually rally his forces and fire. The Wave Force Artillery going to be slowly picking apart these units, but getting shrunk down and quickly eliminated by the combination of IFV Cryocopter. A deadly combo. ZrethyA rushes in with the bears, not actually able to do enough. The Athena cannon's cleaning up some of those bears. And actually, the Athena cannon won't be cleaning up the expansion down there, so ZrethyA is still in this game, but it is not actually producing a whole lot. Another Wave Force Artillery does go down. More infantry do go down. That might have been an additional shrunk Wave Force Artillery as well. And suddenly, there's not actually a whole lot of aircraft that can deal with this many Apollos. How many Tengus would you actually need? 2 heroic Apollos and an additional veteran one, and look at that, you're going to try and engage with all of those Tengus, but it will not actually work out, I think, with this many Apollos, although no, with the Chopper VX, the Striker VX on the ground, rather, will be able to do additional damage to those Apollos and eliminate some of them, but ultimately it's not enough, and the overwhelming forces in the air were enough to clear the skies, raining down bits of mecha units all over this army. What a spectacle, rather, not a spectacle. I don't even know what that is. Maybe that's when you look at a bull that has a spectacle. I am not actually sure. Cryocopters, one of the hero units of this fight. LiCtor able to do a ridiculous amount of damage. Absolutely ridiculous how much damage was done. A little bit crazy here by LiCtor, and going to be pulling back. Doesn't actually want to push the advantage all the way, despite the fact that with the overwhelming air force and those cryocopters, LiCtor could have pushed forward and done some additional damage. However, it is going to be cryocopters freezing down that refinery on the north side, and Joe going to be giving chase with the Wave Force Artillery. ZrethyA able to re-expand to this base, and look at that, because of those silly ore collectors, they will be trying to collect that ore at the same time. Needs to actually just rally that second one that's almost dead off there. And oh, look at that, that hero Riptide going to be getting promoted, eliminates an entire expansion all by themselves, of course with the help of those cryocopters. An additional cryocopter barely alive at all, and LiCtor really would do well to just sort of keep his units over by these airfields just to keep them healed up to full health. Make sure that he's not throwing away any additional units that he doesn't need to, because if you heal up an Apollo 1 or 2 times, then that's almost the same as just, you know, not having to purchase that Apollo 1 or 2 more times. A couple of Mirage tanks mixed in with the army, just going to make this ground army from LiCtor even more powerful. And what can Joe actually do after this? I'm not entirely sure, just because of the extreme air power. I mean, there's a ton of forces on the ground from LiCtor. So much DPS in this army. Joe trying to go for these very specific units, trying to get out these individual like Tengus, Striker VXs, Wave Forces, not really changing from that, because what can you even do versus this many Cryocopters, but also this many Apollos? Because of course the Tengus would be able to clean up the Cryocopters, but when you've got 8 Apollos on the field, it is, of course, very difficult to actually be able to overcome those sorts of numbers, and I guess the onus is on whatever player doesn't have Apollos to not let the allied player get up to that many Apollos if you cannot challenge it. And although a Wave Force Artillery does look like it is going to be sniping a couple of those units there, Mirage tanks transform on the front line. One of them will be sacrificed basically immediately. A second one will go down. The third will move on to do greater things as raining Chopper VXs and Tengus fall from the sky like dangerous artillery bits, but it's not actually that sort of artillery, not projectile artillery anyways. Almost as good as artillery because it's, you know, coming down from the sky anyways. And of course, in classic games, we have seen players utilize their own units and destroy them to try and do that damage to their opponent. However, Cryocopters and Apollo is going to be trying to lock down this expansion. The help of the IFV, of course, will be the one that actually does the killing. Needs to actually just take out the refinery. I mean, hey, why might as well. And oh, it looks like ZrethyA was able to finally rebuild an MCV, but it will get frozen down relatively quickly through the power of those 4 Cryocopters, and it does get frozen right there. And even the Engineer gets broken apart by those IFV missiles, and now the extreme ground army has been whittled down, but it is a highly technical, highly advanced ground army with heroic units dotted in and in between, and also veteran units, and the air army is looking just as terrifying. Joe doesn't actually have the income that they once did. An additional refinery may actually get picked off here. The bad rally point may be sacrificed. Yes, it gets cleaned up, and the heroic status goes to that Mirage tank. So Joe not careful enough with their refineries, and they did lose that one there. Athena Cannon's going to be picking off that additional refinery, while the War Factory for ZrethyA. Joe has been defeated. A curious choice that Joe actually left the game faster than ZrethyA. ZrethyA most likely going to be typing GG in the chat or trying to fight it out in these last few moments. A pocket of infantry over there, but not actually going to be able to break the back of the allied army out of LiCtor. So I guess this may very well be it, as the rest of these units and buildings will likely fall in the next few moments. I don't even know what to say about this ridiculous army. Oh, adding insult to injury, LiCtor with the absolute brutal execution of that small pocket of infantry, using an entire Cryogeddon on top of those infantry and then just running them over. Oh, if that doesn't hurt, then nothing really will ever. But that will do it for this game, pretty much. LiCtor is, not LiCtor, but ZrethyA is trying to hold on. A little bit of income trickling in from these bottom refineries, trying to possibly establish a third or even get a mecha bay or a war factory online. It will not actually happen. And by this point, I thought ZrethyA would have left the game. But LiCtor somehow able to win this game. ZrethyA has been defeated. And man, just that insane army out of LiCtor. There's no real way to counter it. You basically have to counter it with a well-balanced, well-controlled, bigger army of your own. That's really the only way to overcome that army, because there was so much ground forces, and you had, you know, anti-infantry, anti-building, anti-aircraft, anti-tank, anti-everything on the ground. Cryocopters in the air, Apollos in the air, so you had a ridiculous amount of anti-air in the air, plus the stuff on the ground, even naval forces getting in on it with the Riptides, and even, well, I guess the Skywings do kind of count as well. But that will do it for this pretty darn exciting 2v2. Got underway pretty quickly, ended up in a kind of unusual position where it was a 2v1, and LiCtor did an absolutely awesome job, so shout out to LiCtor. Of course, GG to all of these folks, and of course with the additional income of Zuma, LiCtor was able to overcome, so GG to all of these players. Hope to see more games like this in the future, and that will do it for this game. This is Sybert, signing out.